A new report by Elections USA is shedding light on the magnitude of election fraud during the Democratic primary, and they estimate that election fraud cost Bernie Sanders a total of 184 delegates. Now, that's not enough to just cost him the election outright, but when you actually factor in the media blackout and limited debate schedule and the DNC's attempts to smear, infiltrate, and just outright sabotage his campaign, well, we have reason to believe that Bernie Sanders could have actually won if it weren't for this bias. So the 99-page report determines that the Democratic primary was, quote, fatally flawed. So first, they determined that there was mass voter suppression. They also determined that vote registration tampering occurred and it switched voters' party affiliation without their knowledge or consent in states like New York, California, Florida, Kentucky, New Jersey, Oregon, Ohio, and more. There was also illegal voter registration purges in New York, California, and Arizona, and there was also fraudulent voting machine counts. They explain primary contest exit poll discrepancies that exceed the margin of error in 11 of 11 such cases, and all of which favored Clinton, and in 10 of those 11 cases, the media just outright stopped reporting on exit poll numbers. Now, people will counter this by saying, look, the exit polls are off in every single election, but that's the problem, though. That shows that something is not right. So when you look at Europe, well, in many countries, if the exit polls are off by a margin of error of more than 2 points or 5 points, depending on the country, guess what happens? That triggers an automatic investigation. Now, they also know irregularities in certain caucus states, such as Iowa and Nevada. So in Iowa, the Des Moines Register editorial board, which actually endorsed Hillary Clinton, actually said the process, quote, reeked of autocracy, and many people remembered how Hillary Clinton reportedly won every single coin toss in spite of the statistical improbability. Now, also in Nevada, Harry Reid got casino bosses to give their workers time off to actually go and vote for Hillary Clinton, and there are videos of people rushing in without registering to vote, and the people who are actually filming this were told that these people would just register later. And all of these regularities disproportionately affected two demographics in particular. Can you guess which two? Younger voters and independent voters, both of which, surprise, actually vote for Bernie Sanders more often. And now, I can't go through all 99 pages of the evidence with you because we'd be here all day, but what's in here is very, very disturbing. Now, I will put a link in the description box. I would encourage you to read the whole thing because you have to educate yourself about this. There's not much we can do about it now, but we have to know. There has to be an investigation. There is a lawsuit currently, but I actually really like what Debbie Lesignan, otherwise known as the Sane Progressive, recommends. We need an international entity to step in and actually investigate the election fraud, because I don't think anyone in the U.S. can be neutral. So we need someone like the UN to come in and see what the hell is going on. Now, the report concludes the majority of the registration tampering could only have been carried out by computer hackers. In many cases, the changes to voter registrations are provably backdated in official electronic records. Other forms of direct voter suppression, however, were carried out by partisan election officials in states like New York and California. Now, I think it's important to be fair and note that Hillary Clinton isn't directly implicated in election fraud, nor is the DNC. They're only guilty insofar as what was discovered in the DNC leak. But we can be adults here and realize that, there's going to be several degrees of separation between the people directly committing election fraud, that is, people hacking machines, and the person who's going to benefit from it. Now, there are exceptions to this, of course, because even though we don't have any evidence to implicate Hillary Clinton or the DNC, well, we have evidence of Bill Clinton committing election fraud in broad daylight. So when he was in Massachusetts, he had all of his motorcade block polling stations, and people literally could not vote because of Bill Clinton for a certain period of time. He also broke the law by campaigning in front of polling stations within 500 feet. There's video of that, and it's illegal. Now, worst of all, he actually went into the voting booths and campaigned. He told someone, quote, pull the lever for Hillary. That's illegal. And guess what was done? Nothing. So, we have reason to believe that the Clintons are behind this. But of course, we're not going to see direct evidence. And even if we do prosecute someone for election fraud, the Clintons are going to have clean hands because, of course, they're not going to be dumb and just completely be connected somehow to whoever is carrying out the election fraud. So, I mean, this isn't conspiratorial. The evidence is in the document, and I would encourage everyone to read it. And look, there's a reason why these voting machines that we use, which is electronic voting machines, they're banned in Europe, in many European countries, because they're easily hackable. It takes about 5 minutes to hack into these. And so that's scary. That has implications for democracy. And if you want to maintain the integrity of our democracy, we've got to switch to vote by mail. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything's going to be okay. You can still rig the election and commit election fraud if you want to, but it's a lot safer to have vote by mail ballots than it is to have just these easily hackable machines. Now look, I don't care if you're a Bernie supporter, a Hillary supporter, a Trump supporter. Every single person in this country needs to take a stand against election fraud. And look, for me, as someone who dislikes Donald Trump very, very much, I actually defended Donald Trump when it was reported that the RNC would be having a contested convention and handing the election, or the nomination, over to Mitt Romney. I disagree with that because no matter how dangerous a candidate is or how idiotic a candidate is democracy. If citizens want a buffoon like Donald Trump, then they should be able to vote for that individual. I mean, if you're a Hillary supporter, you may not have been affected by election fraud yet. But do you really think that the Republican billionaire donors will be above trying to rig it to make Trump win and to defeat Hillary Clinton? See, this is why election fraud is wrong. Just because it doesn't affect you and your candidate, well, it might one day, and you have to take a stand and speak out against it. So you can bury your head in the sand right now, but down the road, at some point, maybe not this election cycle, maybe not this decade, that election fraud will catch up with you, and we have to speak out against it. We have to take strong, concrete measures to prevent election fraud from occurring, and we need an investigation. We have to determine where this all came from, what happened, who's responsible, so that way it doesn't happen again.